Good morning, guys. It is, look at that weird glare right there. See it on my neck? That's weird. It's Good Friday. I've been doing a devotional all week long that has built up to this moment and this time. On that Holy Week when the Lord entered into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, and as the days we're kitty cornered to the police station. And as the days got closer, as Jesus was in Jerusalem, he got closer to this time, this moment right now. Right now it's Thursday night for me, Friday morning for you, which is Good Friday. But for me, this is the night where Jesus had the Last Supper. This is why we as churches do communion. Last Supper. And a lot of times we need to be reminded of what it is that he went through, because we're so quick to jump to Resurrection Day, or some of you call Easter, and we want to celebrate and he's risen and he's alive. But before he was alive, he was dead. On this Thursday night, he had the Last Supper. On this Thursday night, as he sat with those he trusted the most, he said, one of you is going to betray me. You know, and I want to invite you, before I go on in this video, tonight we have a Good Friday service. This is one of I want to tell you a little bit of why it means so much to me, but I want to invite you, whether you can come in person. If you can come in person, you do not want to miss it. You want to experience this. It is like nothing I could ever describe. And if you are not nearby, I invite you to watch the live stream. When I was in Terminal Island, in federal prison, I remember the chaplain telling me, hey, we're going to have a Good Friday service. And I didn't even know what that was. You know, I had no idea what Good Friday was. I didn't know. So he goes, you got to come. And basically the way he did it in the chapel in the prison is, I'm surprised he got permission to have it dark, because in prison everything has to be lit up. But he had it dark. He put a red light. He put a huge cross there. And as we walked into the chapel, he had the sounds of the whipping of Jesus from the Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Christ that just came out maybe the year before. And he had it playing. Couldn't see it. You could just hear the whipping. So you have the whole place looked red. You hear the whipping. And we walk in and it just completely changed the mood, and it got really serious. It felt like a funeral. And I remember telling myself, when I have a church someday, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this very same thing and have a Good Friday service, you know. And so when I got out, I've had a Good Friday service ever since the beginning. Each year it builds upon itself and gets more and more and more, you know, elaborate, more detailed. And it's something that I truly enjoy, because honestly, it makes Sunday that much better when you experience what it was like on that Friday. But for me, it's Thursday. It was the night that he had the Last Supper. It was the night of him washing the feet of the disciples. It was a night that he went to pray on the Mount of Olives. I want to read out of Luke 22, starting at 39. And it says, and he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed. So like, imagine throwing a stone. That's how far he was from them. And he says, you guys need to pray against temptation. And he said, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. A lot of times we don't want to talk about this, but Jesus himself was asking God to stop this from happening. You know, many of you sometimes, because you, whether it's ministry, whether whatever it is you're doing for the Lord, you have this moment of, God, I don't want this. You think that doesn't pass through my mind sometimes, pastoring a church? And especially, you know, I know this isn't a huge church compared to other churches, but to us, coming from a basement of 20 chairs, this is huge. And there's many times that I'm just like, God, I can't do this. Can this cup be passed over? And when I read this, I find comfort in it, because it says, Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And a lot of times, you know, it's okay to say, it's being human. To say, this thing that you have put upon me, Lord, I can't handle it, but you know what? I will do it if it's your will. And that's the thing that Jesus says. Nevertheless, it's not about my will, but about yours. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, why are you sleeping? Rise and pray, that you may not enter into temptation. Twice. He's like, you need to pray so temptation doesn't hit. Temptation of what? And it says in verse 47, while he was still speaking, there came a crowd, and the man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? And when those who were around him saw what would follow, they said, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? So the disciples were like, hey, is it on and cracking or what? Do we need to get our swords out? Are we going to fight? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. Peter did. He's like, no, I'm going for broke. Boom, he swung, cut a guy's ear off. But Jesus says, no more of this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who had come out against him, have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but this is your hour, the power of darkness. That is powerful that he's saying. He says, I used to preach out in the middle of the day and you didn't do nothing. Oh, but now at night you do it? Let me guess, because you're under the power of darkness. It is this Thursday night for me that Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Matter of fact, many of you, if you're watching this as it's coming out at 3 in the morning, it was around that time that Peter denied Jesus 3 times in the courtyard of the high priest. It was this night that Jesus was beat, that he was mistreated, that he was slapped, that his beard was pulled out of him, that he was slapped, that he was punched. It was this night, guys. And now, as you guys are watching this on Friday, it's a day that he was taken before Herod. It is a day that he was taken before Pontius Pilate. It is the day that he was taken to the whipping post and whipped with the cat o' nine tails 39 times with pieces of metal or iron and bone, ripping away his flesh. It was this day that we remember of what he went through, that a crown of thorns was pushed down on his head. It was on this day that they brought out Barabbas, and they said, it's your custom that we release one of your criminals. Who do you want, Jesus or Barabbas? And everyone started yelling Barabbas. And many of us, we're just like, we hate Barabbas. Why'd they let him go? You know who Barabbas is? You know who he represents? the sinful to the holy? We're Barabbas. We were set free, but he had to suffer. And it was this day that they started to yell, "Crucify him, crucify him." What do you think he felt in his heart? Have you ever been rejected by somebody that loved you? Have you ever been rejected by somebody you loved? Somebody you've loved your whole life, and then they reject you out of nowhere. How do you think he felt when his creation rejects him? That must have broke his heart. At any moment, he could have sent a legion of angels to rescue him, but he didn't. I just want you to reflect on that today. Reflect on everything that happened this week, everything that transpired in Jerusalem that last week, everyone that came against him and everyone that loved him this week. The Last Supper, the betrayal, the arrest, the beatings, denied 3 times. His disciples ran and left him alone. The persecution, the whipping, and the cross. At 3 o'clock in the day is when the temple on the Passover, they would sacrifice the lamb every year, once a year, at 3 o'clock, once a year. And at 3 o'clock, as Jesus was on the cross suffering, at 3 o'clock when the lamb was being sacrificed at the temple, the real lamb was outside of the city on a cross. And at 3 o'clock, exactly when the Passover lamb should be killed, he says, "It is finished." And he gave up his spirit. The Bible says that the sun turned dark and an earthquake. Even the earth was rebelling and mourning because his greatest creation just killed him. I want you to watch tonight's service. Good Friday service at 7 o'clock. The doors open at 6:30. Come early. Get a seat. It's going to fill up. But come early and experience what it was like 2,000 years ago when that first Friday wasn't so good. So I also want to remind you on Saturday between 6 and 7, we have Pastor George that is going to have, he's a musician, he's an evangelist. He's going to play some blues and rock and roll, Christian music, and it's anointed, it's amazing. I love the pastor's heart, and he's going to be able to share between songs, and trust me, you're going to enjoy it. That's Saturday. But then Sunday comes. Sunday comes. The day of the Lord rises again. What an amazing roller coaster of a week. I know I haven't been doing devotionals, but I made a commitment that for Holy Week, for sure, I need to do a devotional every day. Because we need to think about this week, man. But my prayer in the name of Jesus is that as this week I've been doing devotionals, that it kind of gets me going so I can continue to do them, because I really do enjoy it, and I know many of you enjoy it too, and you get edified by it, and you get built up by it, and you get encouraged by it. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna let you go. Good Friday service, 7 o'clock, whether in person or online streaming. Don't miss it. All right, guys. God bless.